I do apologise if the audio is poor. I don't have a mic where I am at the minute because it's very hot where we are, and when it's hot I give my wife the room so she can actually live without roasting to death, because there's an aircon unit in that one room, so you're just going to have to handle it tough. Right, so I'm trying to get updates roughly every 2 weeks of things that I'm doing, along with Devlog posts. Part of that is just so I motivate myself to actually keep doing stuff, and give myself deadlines. So some 2 week gaps might be way more progress led than others. First things first, items. Are they working? So I've done a huge amount of work on items to get them to work. So previously I didn't have the shortcut down here, so I have revamped that and revamped the way this campaign screen does look. First things first is just making sure that the things like upgrades are working and data is passing through properly. So for that now, so I had the nodes working. So you've now got these down here, which are now buttons, and everything now has a reference to the coin. And if you go to these, I've now added a picture on those to make sure they show through, not just the reference. And you'll notice how common some of the items are showing up because I've now added rarity on them. I'm just seeing if there's an upgrade here. I've added this, which I use to test that I can get items and click them, and made it so when I run through nodes, they don't trigger once I run through them if they're not a selected node. So I can claim that. You can see that now shows there. It's interesting. So that's something that hopefully will be a fairly quick fix. Oops, right, so let's try this again. So it turns out basically, and I will need to change this at the start, it can't actually get this reference because technically it doesn't exist. So I'll have to do something to change that around a bit, probably like a signal or something. But I've now, for this scene anyway, it's fine to just done a link here rather than it find anything. So you get your tomato. So tomato, for example, this is an upgrade, so it might be worth me putting upgrade or something on there. So I'm just going to go to tomato donation, add an extra heart, claim that. My hearts will increase. So my upgrades are now working, it's not going anywhere else. So if you can find the pig's bladder again, prove life is an extra life. Right, okay. Let's go to the prove life, for example. Claim that. I've now got an extra life with that little one there. It's just a small thing, I can always add to that later. I've basically got it so the items can now work. So here's another, I should check that one. But there, render farm. Get render farm, gives you an extra slot. That's running through fine. I can't go sideways or backwards. I can read what's there, because that's fine. Maybe a small change to this down here. Brave life. There we go, pig's bladder. So the pig's bladder, the reason I wanted this is it's the only clickable item in this area, and as with anything, if you hover over it, tell you if it's consumable, give you like a brief of what it's about, and basically then in the red we'll just give you the actual tooltip so you actually specifically know. And here, if I click that now, that would heal me. You should be able to see in the console that that's not, so you should be able to hopefully see a console this time round. Don't know if I can zoom in, but basically health adjustment action used for the value of one item used, add functionality. So there is a functionality there, so the actual logic for the items is now there, and the items themselves, and basically I can now just add a list of actions there once I've got the code in there, a bit like that Joker button. In theory that will now do what it should do, but obviously I need to test. So I got it that far where the upgrades were working, the items in theory were working. It was just a case of actually getting them to work the way that I wanted them to do, but I could interact with them, I could sell them. I also changed the trader now to potentially accept traded items as well, which was another key change. In theory, that should adjust dependent on the value of the two items between them, basically. So all that needs testing, but in theory the function's there. So a ton of work done with regards to items. The other thing that I were wanting to work on and focus on is persistent data. So you may notice when I started the game I had a different avatar to the one that's shown here, and if I go over to my scenes, so this in theory will be kind of the screen that you start with anyway, and if I go play from there, I can't take it all the way into battle, but I will show the battle separately just because I don't have those nodes set up to work yet. And I will do some separate testing. But here, for example, you'll have this, you can put your name up there. In theory, we'll track that later down the line, but it gives you the basic pattern. And if I just make this bigger, should have like different hairstyles there. There's a bit of a visual bit there to kind of work on, but this should then work, and you can just click save. I need to relook at reset to see if that works, but let's just go cancel here. There's a bit of a visual thing up there to get rid of, but the buttons and stuff do adjust based on the patterns and the colours that you picked. So for this I'm now going to go to campaign, which will then load me into the campaign, and you can still see I've still got the information there. Just need to change this as well, I've completely forgot about that. It's not that it won't work at all, but yes, I did forget about that. So persistent data for the most part. These buttons I've not set up yet. Okay, I need to actually program those buttons. But the persistent data is there, because if I go to, I'll just jump straight to the title scene, for example. You should notice that it says test player at the top here. So that one does say test player, so you can do that. And just to show as well, in the single player, if I click play, assuming that nothing breaks here, because I have tweaked some small bits. Good, nothing's broken straight away. The background's changed close to how you would want it to change. It says test player there, now it says test player there, my avatar's there. So this game has now changed based on my personal settings. And if, just to take that one step further, just to show it again, if I go into custom avatar, I open this up. I've not actually tested this, so I'm hoping this is going to work. If I now change this, so let's change myself, give us more of a mice game, so let's instead do that. Let's get rid of the beard, there we go, and let's just call it Baby Bobby. Yeah, click save on that. So I've got rid of the beard, so maybe change one of the colours, so instead of that blue, let's go more of a purple for Bob. Let's get rid of the green, just change that to maybe more of a white, and just click save again and go back, and you'll see that this is now changed. So now I've got a more of a purple tint. Interestingly enough, the player name has got default to player, so that's obviously something to look at, but the overall look at least is consistent, and it is loading that up. So I do need to just have a quick look at the name, and again if we go into single player and click play there, this background should have also changed to reflect that as well. And this has changed the name, so Baby Boy, so that'll just be a small fix on another side. It's not changed the NPC. The NPC, if I just make this a big screen there, it still says this guy. So you can fully change and customize everything now based on how you want to set it up. Give it different patterns and stuff like that. So just to show some of the patterns as well, and go back to the customizer, just maximize this again. Let's go to extras. So I've got different designs there, so in theory if I change that more to a pattern, click save on that, go back, and you'll see everything's kind of got its own little pattern now. If I go into campaign, got a little pattern there. And again, let's just go into the single player, maximise that, and in theory that should change the pattern on this. It doesn't. So that's maybe something as well what I need to do. So there's a couple of small tweaks, but you can see like the logic's there. There's just a couple of small bits that just need changing and playing about with, but the kind of concept's there. So that's kind of what I've been working on. I had a week off, so this has been, I've been able to do a lot more on this in over the last 2 weeks than what I would normally. The next bit's campaign manager. I still need to get the save file working for that. Obviously fix these slight niggles on there. I want to have this load up, which is why I've not hooked up the conflict manager back in to the node yet, although it exists, is because I'm wanting to change the way that it loads. Instead of loading a new scene and replacing the previous scene, I want it to async load. So both scenes are kind of there, like one's kind of in the background, it's like sleeping. So I kind of want to do that, so when you go back and forth between battles, it's a bit less taxing between them. I've not done async loading before, so it's going to require a bit more work around that to make sure stuff's working. But yeah, this is the basics of how the persistent data wants to work, and it's much smoother. I've literally done whole restructuring just to give a bit more of an idea at this whole customization data bank, and all this green that's been commented out, that's all stuff that I've looked at, understood what I'd done the first time round, and then refactored it. So basically the previous one was using an instance data bank to hold the data, whereas now I've not done that. I've now, because it was requiring additional scripts and additional connections, like it needed this avatar script to work before, which kind of worked but kind of didn't work. So I've kind of changed that a bit more around to have more of a preset which I can use for the NPCs and like conflict agents and stuff like that. Much easier to design around that, and I've also now have an actual player avatar which holds on to that data itself and handles that logic within that is now on the player manager as a whole, so in the player data. So the player data now holds the name and the avatar data and stuff like that, and that, although it may not look like a huge amount's changed, there's a lot of background work to get this to work how it is. I'm much happier with it though, and it should make everything much smoother. But even the save file, I'm much happier with how that works. It is much simpler now, and it's also been designed with the idea of multiplayer, whereas the instance before maybe would have had more problems. And the other thing that I also did with items, before I forget, very quickly, is I've also added this quantity, so just make the screen bigger again, but I've just got this little quantity there that dashes at the minute, because as I say, I kind of want trading, so maybe I'll go over here. No coins for this, but sure, let's pick up a Minolta lens. There you can see it's got a ×1 next to it, so can I find another Minolta? Oh, perfect, wonderful. I can claim a second one, and now I've got 2. So I've now got multiple Minolta lenses, so I could potentially use those for trading later down the line, and so on and so forth. Next things on the agenda, upgrades is there. Items usable is kind of there. I need to finish those off. However, what I will also do for the items is I'm not going to worry about testing them all, because if I come across a bug, brilliant, I'll fix the bug. If I don't come across a bug, I'm not going to worry about it too much, because it's starting to get to the point where there's so many variables, it's harder to test, and this is currently going to be free on itch.io, so I'm not too worried about having bugs, as long as you can report on them. Persistent data, so one part of that's done for the player data, so I've done that. It is just now the campaign data that I want to work on. So I'm hoping by the next devlog, the idea is items will be actually fully sorted, and the campaign will save, and if possible, I'm not going to worry about small bugs like that, although it does allow me to. It does not allow me to get 2 Oobla fruits. It's good that it didn't allow me to get that twice. Before I can do the boss node, I need the async for the battle working. So what I want more than anything else for the next time is to be able to go from the avatar page into the menu, into the campaign, and into a battle, and back out of the battle, back to the campaign, abandon the campaign, back to the title film. So that's what I need to test. I'm not going to test going back to the avatar screen, because the avatar screen is just on the title page, and I can just start here and go into it from here. I'll double check that's definitely working, but I can't see why that wouldn't. That loaded it fine this time, by the way. Now it says bit more. If I go into that, I go into bit bugbear, go cancel, go back here, but that doesn't load. So I'm not sure why that is. Yeah, I think it's because it's on start, and technically it's if I click cancel, it doesn't do on the start, but load should work. I don't know. I actually quite like that pattern actually in the end, personally. But yeah, so those are my updates for this time round, and those are my kind of plans looking forward. I'll write a dev vlog so you don't have to watch this video, but if you are interested, I'll put this in a video, and you can kind of see and let me know as usual any thoughts or anything. But yeah, cheers, take care, bye.